So we've talked about HOAs and we've touched on deed restrictions before. So I wanted to talk today strictly about deed restrictions, what they are, and how they affect you. So the deed restrictions, so when you purchase a property, you get a deed to that property. And within that deed, if there are restrictions to build on that or to do certain activities on that land, then those restrictions will be written within that deed. So not necessarily do you have to have an HOA in order to have a deed restriction. A lot of subdivisions will have deed restrictions. I bought 20 acres. It has deed restrictions. So what those deed restrictions can look like. So for me in the country, I live on 20 acres. The deed restriction is no manufactured homes. You'll find that a lot on bigger parcels of land. When you're in subdivisions, you're going to have more deed restrictions. Say you can't have livestock animals. You can't build a pole building. Your detached garage has to match your house. Square footage of the home has to be, a certain square footage. There's all kinds of different things that can be a deed restriction. When you do not have an HOA in place, the authorizing authority basically would be your neighbors. So if it says that you can't park a RV in your driveway, if your neighbor sends you a letter and says, hey, that's a deed restriction, you're breaking the rules here, and you don't move it, pretty much the neighbor has to take you to court to get you to move it. If you live in an HOA and you have a deed restriction, the HOA is going to get their lawyer and they're going to make you move it. So deed restrictions they're good to have in place, but they're very kind of to enforce. Your neighbors are going to be enforcing those rules upon you to make sure that you are following the deed restrictions. And most of the time, those restrictions are put into place to hold the homes to a certain level of, standard. So if you buy it, like for instance, I purchased a piece of land and I build a $500,000 home on it. You don't want the guy next door building or buying the land and then bringing in, a single wide trailer. It decreases the value of your property. So it just holds that standard of value. So in that aspect, if that were to happen, that neighbor's probably going to get their lawyer and make sure that that doesn't continue to happen as soon as that building permit gets issued. Because just because the county issues the building permit and says, hey, yeah, you're free and clear, doesn't mean that it's going to fly. So deed restrictions are not upheld by the county. They're upheld by your neighbors. And then if you're in an HOA, they're upheld by the HOA. So definitely want to check in to make sure there's no deed restrictions when you do purchase raw land. If you purchase land in general and want to know, or it has a house on it and you want to build a pole barn, say, you want to make sure there's no deed restrictions against that. So the deeds are very easily obtainable. That's public record. I just went to the courthouse this morning and grabbed a copy of a deed to check deed restrictions. So if it's not available to online through your agent or through the listing agent, the buyer's agent can easily go to the courthouse and double check it and make sure. The buyer can make sure. All that due diligence to make sure that you are getting a piece of property that you can do what you want with it. If you want something that has deed restrictions so that, those things are in place and enforceable, then, you definitely want to double check that. And then again, if you want property that doesn't have any deed restrictions on it, you want to double check that because you don't want to purchase a piece of property you can't do what you want with. So if you have any questions about deed restrictions, definitely reach out to me, shoot me a message, a comment below. If you have any questions anything that I can touch base on that you want more clarification on in another video, definitely, let me know that, because I'm always looking for information to best help the consumer and educate you. So, and make sure you're subscribing to our channel. That way you can get the notifications each week when we post our mortgage vocabulary and our informational videos. We'll talk to you soon.